General Heinrich Falk stood inside a dim command bunker, staring at a map that no longer obeyed logic. Red arrows pushed westward like bleeding wounds, each one representing a Soviet formation moving faster than expected. For months, German High Command had believed the enemy was exhausted, broken, and incapable of large-scale maneuver. The map now told a different truth. Falk removed his gloves slowly, not because of heat, but because his hands were shaking. Every supply line marked in blue was stretched beyond sustainability. Fuel columns were days late. Ammunition trains had vanished under partisan attacks. Infantry divisions existed on paper but not in reality. Reports arrived every 10 minutes, each worse than the last. One regiment had collapsed without contact. Another had surrendered after running out of food. A panzer battalion reported only 6 operational tanks. The general whispered a sentence he had never allowed himself to think before. "We will not survive 48 hours." This was not fear, it was mathematics. Soviet armored spearheads were already cutting behind German lines. Communication cables had been severed. Air superiority no longer existed. Luftwaffe support requests went unanswered. The Red Army had learned. They no longer attacked blindly. They encircled, isolated, and crushed. Falk remembered the arrogance of earlier briefings in Berlin. Victory was always assumed. Retreat was forbidden. Flexibility was treason. Now flexibility was the only thing that could save lives. A young signals officer entered, his face pale. "Soviet units have crossed the river behind us, Herr General." That river was supposed to be the last defensive barrier. Falk closed his eyes. Encirclement was no longer a possibility. It was reality. He requested permission to withdraw. The response from High Command was immediate. "Hold your positions. No reinforcements, no retreat, no explanation, just obedience." Falk understood the unspoken message. If the army vanished, it would vanish in place. The general walked outside the bunker. Snow fell gently, indifferent to human strategy. Wounded soldiers lay wrapped in blankets, staring at the sky. They trusted him. That trust weighed heavier than any metal. He calculated again. Enemy strength, own reserves, weather conditions, time, 48 hours. That was all that remained. The realization was complete. Not defeat. Obey orders and sacrifice an army, or disobey and be branded a traitor. History would not forgive either easily. He gathered his senior officers in a half-destroyed farmhouse. Their uniforms were torn, their eyes hollow. No one pretended optimism. Falk spoke calmly. "We are surrounded." No gasps followed. They already knew. Maps were spread across a broken table. Soviet formations formed a tightening ring. The gap was narrow, temporary, and unapproved. A breakout was possible, but only now, and only once. Waiting meant extinction. The Chief of Staff reminded him of the fall 1/4 Führer's directive. "No retreat under any circumstances." Falk replied quietly. "Circumstances no longer exist." The room fell silent. He ordered preparations for a night breakout. Radio silence, minimal vehicles, wounded prioritized, documents burned. The decision spread like electricity. Hope returned, fear increased, both at once. As darkness fell, Soviet artillery began its rhythm. Explosions painted the horizon red. The breakout began under moonlight. Columns moved without headlights. Soldiers carried wounded comrades through snow and blood. Soviet flares illuminated chaos. Machine guns opened fire. Men fell, others stepped over them. There was no stopping. Stopping meant death. Falk moved with the front units, a general walking instead of commanding. Bullets struck meters away. A shell threw him to the ground. He stood up again. Forward, always forward. At dawn, the ring was breached. Not cleanly, not fully, but enough. Thousands escaped. Thousands did not. The army was broken, but not erased. Falk sent a final report. Breakout executed. Army partially saved. The reply came hours later. "You disobeyed orders." He expected no congratulations, only consequences. There were no ceremonies, no acknowledgements, only silence. An investigation followed. Witnesses testified. Survivors spoke. Numbers were counted. The verdict was predetermined. Disobedience, undermining authority, setting a dangerous precedent. The lives saved were irrelevant. Doctrine mattered more than reality. Falk was relieved of command. Later, arrested. His name disappeared from reports. Official history never mentioned his calculation, but soldiers remembered. They remembered a general who chose people over paper. The Eastern Front continued to collapse. Entire armies vanished exactly as Falk had predicted. Encirclements multiplied. Losses became catastrophic. The war moved inexorably west. After the war, fragments of truth surfaced. Diaries, letters, survivor accounts. They told of a man who understood reality before ideology allowed it. 48 hours. That was all the margin history offered. Most leaders ignored it. One did not. His punishment was swift. His legacy quiet. But his decision saved thousands who lived to tell the story. This is not a story of victory. It is a story of limits, of mathematics over faith, of time as the deadliest weapon, and of a general who realized too clearly that an army can disappear not in years, but in hours.